All right, guys, gorgeous August day out here. It's kind of started cooling off just a smidge, at least temporarily. Got a lot of wheeling trips coming up with this thing, but today we're just out here for another quick video talking about the TJ as a whole. Today's topic is the 5 major downfalls of the 97 to 06 Wrangler TJs. So stick around as we go through them and find out what they are. As we start off every video now, as you guys know, we've got a 04 TJ. Obviously, it's got a lot done to it. You can find that in other videos. Today's topic, however, is about the TJ as a whole, and it is the 5 major downfalls of the 97 to 06 TJ. So we'll hop right into it. In no particular order, we're just going to start with something that is true for every single Jeep out there, and it is kind of a non-off-roading topic. It's just the TJ as a whole. Number 1, frame rot. I've got a video from a long time ago where we talked about the things to look for when buying a used TJ. Number 1 on that list was frame rot. And what I mean by frame rot is if you get a Jeep from anywhere in the north from 97 to 06, it is likely going to have a good bit of rust on the frame. These frames were actually designed with no way for water or anything to drain out of the bottom of the frame. So what happens is a lot of silt and grime and water and road dirt and everything goes in the holes here on the side of the frame, and it has no way to get out. So it really just sits in there, rots the frame from the inside out. And then the classic place to start seeing it is right here where the control arm mounts to the frame. The body mounts right here between the bottom of the frame and the skid, and just all right in here. So frame rot really is the number 1 downfall of the TJ to me. It was a flawed design by Chrysler, and everybody should know about it before they go about getting a 97 to 06 Wrangler. Number 2 downfall of the TJ is it came with extremely wimpy steering. May seem stupid, but the first thing you're going to want to do when you get big tires on a TJ and plan to go off-road is upgrade the steering. This is Curry Correct Link. It's still the factory Y-Link style steering. However, this is literally close to about twice as thick as the stock steering. A lot better steel. The stock steering is very puny. If you look at the JKs and definitely the JLs, the tie rod and drag link are even bigger than this, probably by about 1.5 times. So number 2 is really the wimpiness of the stock steering on the TJ. Number 3, sticking up front. Number 2 was kind of a off-road subject, as are most of the rest of the things on this list, considering this is an off-road channel. So number 2 was the wimpiness of the steering. Like I said, staying up front. Number 3, it's not easy at all to upgrade the brakes. And I'm not talking about what I've got, which is a power stop caliper and drilled and slotted rotors and all that. You can certainly upgrade the factory brakes as far as quality. What I'm talking about is when you get up to 38s, 40s, all that stuff, it's near impossible to do a big brake kit on these. What you end up having to do is go to a YJ knuckle or run some sort of custom knuckle that actually allows you to run a 2-piston or larger caliper. Factory TJ calipers are actually just a single piston, so we don't find it very hard to stop on the trail. I'll admit, this thing, for having stock brakes on the front with power stop calipers and then upgraded discs on the back from Fusion, this thing stops actually really well on the trail. A lot of people, especially if you get up bigger than this on 38s and 40s and all that, they find themselves having a lot of issues stopping, and so they naturally want to get bigger rotors, bigger calipers, heavier duty brakes up here. It's very hard to find a good kit for this, and like I said, you end up having to go to a different knuckle, and which entails a whole lot of other things that you really don't want to have to get into. So that's number 3 on the list for today, is the brakes on the front are near impossible to upgrade. Number 4 to me is kind of a negative and a positive. We posted a video a few weeks back of the top 5 things that I love about the TJ. One of those was size, and this is kind of the same category as size. Number 4 on the list of downfalls to me is the wheelbase. Why do you think the LJ was created? other than cabin space. It was wheelbase. These TJs have a 93-inch wheelbase, which is very, very short. The JLs and all that, the two doors now even have a bigger wheelbase than the TJ did. And where wheelbase is needed is off-road on hills, ledges, all that kind of thing that you see in some of our wheeling videos. Josh has a 5-inch stretch, so he's sitting about 98, 99 inches. I'm at 93 inches, which is completely stock. And then the LJ should be sitting about 10 inches longer than mine, so around 102, 103 inches or something like that. Maybe 101 is the number. Either way, the LJ has the wheel pushed way out here, and like I said, that really helps with off-roading. A lot of the four-door JKs have really good luck on hill climbs, bumping up ledges and all that because it has such a long wheelbase. Now, the wheelbase can also be a little bit of a negative if you're very long, like a four-door JK. A lot of times it takes more lift to get you up to where your breakover angle isn't a killer. And what I mean by breakover angle is if we were climbing over a little knob here that was like this, you know, the TJ being so short it can crawl over it and without the belly hitting. But with the JK being so long, and the LJ in some situations, you find themselves dragging on the center there. So, like I said, wheelbase can be both a plus and a minus. In this video, it's a minus because I'm trying to come up with things that we don't like about the TJ, which is hard to do, side note, because these are my favorite vehicles to ever be made. So, number 4 is wheelbase. Alright guys, the number 5 thing on our list of 5 major downfalls of the 97 to 06 TJ is how hard it is to fit big tires on a TJ. What I mean by that is, if you notice nowadays, the JLs, some of the JKs, basically pretty much all the JKs, just especially the later model ones, you can put a 2.5-inch lift on here and run 37s. Now, you'll still rub the fender off-road. It wouldn't be an optimal setup. More optimal for 37s on a JL is probably about 3.5, 4 inches. But the point is, you can take a near stock JK or JL, put big tires on it, at least 35s, if not 37s, and run down the road just fine. They come with a lot beefier equipment. Like we mentioned before, number 2 was the steering, number 3 was the brakes. All that is a lot heavier duty on the newer Jeeps. The axle housings are better. There's bigger ring gears in both the axles. Everything is just designed better because Jeep finally realized that people like taking these things off-road, so they started incorporating things like that in to where you have to do less modifications in order to go trail riding. Along with the things we mentioned on the axle and the steering, another thing that Chrysler started incorporating in is better body lines. And what I mean by that, we've got a total fender replacement here, but if we didn't, our fender would be coming down something like that and almost contacting the tire. Same thing in the back. This really comes down at a sharp angle, comes to a point here to where if we bumped up to any size tire bigger than this, we'd be grabbing right in here and have to do some cutting. What Jeep did for the JLs is they really followed this line that Motobuilt has here and cut the body off right there and rounded that a lot better, so you can fit bigger tires on here without having to trim the tub any, because they realized, you know, smartly, hey, people are getting our vehicles, putting huge tires on them and going off-road, so why would we not make it easier for them to fit bigger tires without having to cut up our bodies and all that. So they finally got some of that right. The TJ had none of that right. The TJ was meant to stay somewhat close to the tire size it came on. Back then, lifting things this big wasn't as big of a deal. Nobody really expected these to be running around on 40s ever. Back then, kind of 33s were big, 35s were huge. So it's just kind of a time period thing. But anyway, it's a lot harder to fit bigger tires on these without a lot of upgrades, and we've obviously done quite a bit of upgrades to this just to get to the point we're at. So like I said, number 5, it's very hard to fit big tires on here compared to the newer JKUs and JLUs and all that good stuff. All right guys, that was my 5 things that I find to be major downfalls on the 97 to 06 TJ Wranglers. As you guys know, this is a TJ channel. It was very hard for me to come up with 5 things I actually disliked about these. And some of them could be a negative and some of them could be a positive, kind of like the wheelbase thing. So did the best I could with 5 things. Number 1, the frame rot. You really want to be careful with that. Never ever buy a TJ up north without inspecting the frame by poking at it, kind of hitting at it with a small hammer maybe. Things like that. You don't want to get into doing a lot of frame repairs. This was a Georgia Jeep. It lived in Georgia its whole life until we bought it. Now it's in Alabama. It's never been north of Georgia or Alabama, and our frame has thankfully been fine, so we avoided the frame rot. Number 2 and 3 were kind of things that the JK improved on, the steering and the brakes. Number 4 is the one that could be a plus or a minus, kind of talking about the wheelbase. And then number 5, fitting big tires. Obviously we've done enough to fit big tires on this one. We're kind of talking about more of a stock setup though, and compared to the JLs and the JKs, these can be very difficult to fit big tires on. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stick around for more videos from Everyday Off-Road. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.